Hello, this is Dr. Mewborn, and this is History of the Baptist. Today we're in Lesson 25, Baptist in Greater Britain, and this is referring to the greater part of England and the surrounding areas as well, as missions went out from Great Britain and from England, how it affected so many other places, and so we're going to talk about a lot of that today. Let's go ahead and jump into our study. We were talking last time about the Great Century for Baptists, and we're looking at the 1800s to the early 1900s. William Carey was in India developing a missionary enterprise that would eventually impact the world. And so what we're going to do is look at a couple of guys like William Carey that made a tremendous difference. Of course, we talked about him in the previous lesson. And this is something that he said and has made very well known in Christian circles today. Expect great things from God. Attempt great things for God. There's his birth date and his death date, and incredible force in India for the gospel of Jesus Christ. We also see Andrew Fuller was in Kettering working incessantly to strengthen evangelical theology. Andrew Fuller was a true intellect, but he also understood the value of going forth and doing the work of an evangelist and to build that up and create structure there. He needed to write, he needed to do all types of things, and so that's what he spent a great deal of his time doing during this great century. And then also Dan Taylor was in London working with the General Baptist and new connection groups to strengthen churches, schools, and societies for Christian work. And so he's working very hard in these areas. And what's happening here is these guys are part of the Baptist missionary society. What they're doing is they're taking the gospel from the areas and they're spreading it out. And so people are knowing that this is a very strong force of Christians that are supporting the Baptist, really the faith and message as it goes forth. And so you see that as they're building doctrine and as they're taking those doctrines and that fervor for the gospel around the world. We see also the struggles of the Victorian era during this time as well. Developments in science led people to question the traditional religious concepts of the Bible. So these are the struggles during this time, and science was coming in. We've talked before about Charles Darwin and this whole idea of modernism was coming in. Well, when that came in and what Charles Spurgeon called the downgrade, when that came in with all the aspects of it, it began to cause struggles in the Christian faith and, of course, with the Baptist faith. And a lot of controversy came out of that. New methods of literary and historical study led people to question the authority of the Bible. So not only were the concepts of the Bible or the tenets of the Bible being questioned, but now the authority of the Bible was also being questioned. And then economic developments and entertainment led many people away from their religious communities and meeting houses. So people got caught up in making a lot of money. They got caught up in the idea of people were flourishing in Great Britain at the time, but also there was opportunity for entertainment. And you could say the entertainment could have been a part of drinking and being a part of that party scene. They could have been a part of gambling, shows, theaters, things like that. And it was drawing people away from the church because they were what I would call sometimes is distracted. And I think this is a great picture we have today, a guy on his phone walking and not seeing the manhole in front of him. He's distracted. A lot of things can distract us. A lot of things can pull us away from the purpose that we have and the direction that God is calling us. And what's happening here is that whether it's in the world of science or whether it's in the world of historical or literary study, or whether it's dealing with money and entertainment, those are distractions that Satan has used throughout history to draw people away from the gospel of Jesus Christ, and also drawing them away from their mission and what God's called them to do. I've seen this happen a lot in the church world where somebody will get distracted because they started making a lot more money. Well, then they buy a lake house. So, well, what do you do about having a lake house? You got to go and take care of it on the weekends. So you find yourself not coming back home because you're at the lake house and you got to take care of it so you won't make it back to be able to go to church. And so it's many things like this happen a lot of times with when economic developments are taking place. And a lot of that was going on, but also you had the push of science and things like that. And so just give you some examples of how people can be distracted there. The Baptist Union was an incredible program that started out almost more premature in its starting in some ways because it didn't catch on very strongly for a few years, but when it did, it really took off. It was formed in 1813 with 46 ministers as charter members, a national organization of particular Baptist churches and ministers. The union held 2 official meetings per year, one in London and the one in Bristol. And the purpose of the Baptist Union were as follows: promote Christian education, Sunday school, village preaching, and raise funds for new church buildings. And this was the idea. And so the idea for what they were doing was good, but it didn't gain a lot of traction. It was struggling. But as we look at it, we can see that it does develop over time to become something very strong and able to do a lot of ministry. Today, this is what the symbol or the logo looks like. It's called Baptist Together, and you can kind of see here. You can see the B definitely for Baptist in this logo, but then you also see the water, the symbol of water there. You see a cross there, and then if you look at it, you can see a fish swimming kind of downward to the right. And that's what you see in this. So it's kind of all symbolic of the work of Christians and how they worked from Great Britain. And so that's what you have there. But it's neat when you start to study the Baptist Union because there are so many facets to it, so many things that they were a part of. And we'll look at that here in just a little bit. A couple dates I want to show you very quickly. If you look to 1792, you see the formation of the Baptist Missionary Society. We talked about that last time. But then in 1832, the next one, go down in the blue, it says the Baptist Union, originally created in 1813, is reorganized to become an umbrella body for all Baptists. So it started out kind of humble beginnings, but then it became very strong in 1832, and then it went through some tougher times again, but then it developed again and reorganized, or not reorganized, but strengthened as well as it continued moving on. This is a great slide to kind of see Baptist history in England, in Britain, Great Britain, because it allows you to see the major points, pivotal points really, that made the difference for the Baptist in England. The Baptist Union. The Union went through many years of thinly attended meetings. So even though they had a good idea, even though they had kind of standards of what they wanted to do, it just was not well attended. There was not very strong leadership for several years. Ministers were unsure for the reason for their meetings. They just didn't know why they were there. You might have seen a cartoon like this before, but meeting tonight, topic, scheduling another meeting. And that's about how these men felt. They felt like they were going to something that didn't have a great deal of purpose to it. And when you go to meetings like this, of course, people just stop coming. And they pull away because they don't see it's a good use of their time. And so that's what's happening for them. But in 1877, the Baptist Union underwent a radical change in which it took on home mission work, particular Baptist Fund, and the Baptist Building Fund. So it's starting to take on a lot more things. It's starting to develop and become stronger. The Union gained the interest of General Baptist churches, and they soon merged their efforts in 1891. And so what they're trying to do is say, hey, let's put aside some of the differences for the greater cause, because we need to function a certain way. And in order to do that, we need to get all of our Baptist brothers and sisters together to do that. And so that's what they're talking about. The Union gained the interest of General Baptist Church, and they soon merged their efforts. 1891. As a result, the Baptist Union became less confessional in their purpose and more functional as a Christian society or organization. Ultimately, what they were doing is kind of what this quote says. It is so important to balance orthodoxy with orthopraxy. And they were trying to do that in some ways. And what had happened is they were focusing much more on orthodoxy, the confessional side of things, for years. And then over 50 years later, they said, let's get serious about practicing what we believe in general. And so that's where they went down those roads. Well, as we continue on, let's talk a little bit about the General Baptist. We've talked about these types of things in previous slides, and so I don't want to delve into it today, but talk about the Old Connection group General Baptists were a part of. There was doctrinal extremism and numerical decline that was taking place with this group. Unitarianism became more pronounced in doctrine and practice, and so that really started to that caused a lot of struggle with a lot of controversy with many of the Baptists during this time. And then the New Connection group thrived during this time because of mass printing and the emphases on missions. And so that's what changed this new idea, this new move, the new lights, the people that had this vibrancy about them, about taking the gospel to the world. It's kind of this idea they were mass printing and getting this printing out of what God was doing. And we talk about this a lot with the awakenings of how God was saving souls, and there was just a newness, and it was incredible. So that was what was happening during this time. The Baptist Missionary Society received large donations because of their strong emphases on missions. The monies received enabled the BMS to strengthen its cord and lengthen its stakes. So we're talking about tents regarding missions and what they were trying to do. William Carey, James Ward, and William Marshman helped develop the BMS program, and the BMS greatly benefited from direct evangelism, Bible translations, educational work, and printing of tracts. And so this is what really took the Baptist Missionary Society onto a whole new level, is that they were taking the gospel directly to people. They had so many Bible translations going out from this group, educational work, of course, and then printing of tracts, and they were doing that. And so if you think about it, it's kind of like all these people are working together, and it's this idea of fundraising and going out and doing what you need to do. And think of this group right here. It's a think tank, and they're going forth with this idea of charity and donate, and how do we get people? Well, they had a lot of things going, and so it was easy to ask for money, and they got a lot of that. But what were the social concerns in England? The Baptists were often known for their protests, but rarely known for their reform. They were always talking, this is bad, we shouldn't do this, or we need to stop these areas, but the reform of those things was not as strong. And so this is where they kind of fell off a little bit. However, there are some things that we can definitely thank the Baptists for. Baptists helped with the abolition of slavery and temperance, and those were two major things that were not only preached about, but oftentimes ministers went out to do things about these different aspects. Slavery was abolished in the British Empire in 1830s and the United States in 1860s. Temperance became a huge issue for many Baptists during the 19th century. Most churches converted to grape juice for communion while promoting abstinence of any alcoholic beverages at the time. If you can imagine a sign like this, and this would have been commonplace for the temperance movement, and so it says drinking leads to neglect of duty, moral degradation, and crime, and that kind of shares some sinful actions there in front of this man, what he's looking at. But it's this idea that drinking was causing violence at that time. Drinking was causing people to be in poverty. Drinking was causing people to gamble. It was causing people to hurt people, even murder it was causing so many things because alcohol can take over. And this was something that Baptists were fighting against. They even did this in America for years. And many Baptists today still, of course, will not drink because of their stances on different things. And so this is the social concerns that the Baptists had in England that we definitely cannot neglect as we look at this area. So, anyways, let's stop right there. Good to be with you today, and hope you enjoyed this lesson. We'll be back with you very soon with another lesson. So God bless you and have a great day. Bye.